Welcome. My name is Mark Neal and I'm the Director General of the Bar Standards Board. Now you may be wondering, why the Bar Standards Board? Why disability? Well, barristers, the bar, perform a hugely important role in our society. They give us fellow citizens access to justice. They support the rule of law. So it's hugely important that the bar is a reflection of the society we serve, and that barristers from all backgrounds and with disabilities are able to progress their careers at the bar on an equal basis. What you're going to see in this film are some inspiring examples of disabled barristers who have done exactly that.
I just came as a tourist, you might say. I got walked around the inns and I fell in love with the place, and then I said to everyone, that's it, I'm off. I'm going to be a barrister.
The first thing that inspired me to pursue a legal career was when I was 15, the O.J. Simpson trial was on the television, and just loved what I saw.
The only real difference for me was that when I was doing mini pupilages, for example, or vacation placements, when I was still exploring whether to be a solicitor or a barrister, I would use those placements as a means of working out what support I would need and what kind of support would suit me best.
Everyone kind of laughed for the simple reason I did not fit what was seen as the archetypal background to be a barrister. I came from a very working class immigrant family. I didn't even go to mainstream school. I went to special school for disabled children. Academically, it did not even match mainstream. It was below mainstream level. I left school very early. At the age of 14, I became very ill, and luckily, I ended up with private tuition at home. I then managed to achieve some very high A-levels, went to the university of my choice, and simply by being stubborn, I've made my way into the bar, and I've been here 21 years.
At the beginning, I was very concerned about how it would affect my livelihood, especially as an established practitioner.
The attitude that I have to work twice hard or be exceptional in order to be perceived as equal with someone that is not on a wheelchair or does not have a hidden disability is something that I perceive as the biggest barrier, because it's the one that is harder to change.
I didn't have any specific disabled role models growing up. I don't recall seeing anyone on the TV.
Unfortunately, I never had any disabled role models in my early career, basically because I never saw any anyway. I grew up watching television in the mid to late 1980s and early 1990s, and you never really saw disabled people anywhere.
I'm not aware of any research that's looked into why there is so little known about disabled barristers and disabled judges historically.
So far as I am still aware, I was the first and only pupil from my school to go to university.
There will be situations where I had to join mooting competitions virtually, since there were issues with like wheelchair access, for example, or it was more difficult to commute for me due to my disability. Those were some things that were harder to incorporate since they were like one-off opportunities. I
did come across the odd person, the odd barrister who would say, well, do you think you can really do this? And of course, to be quite honest, at that point, back in sort of mini pupillage time, I had no idea. I mean, I didn't see other profoundly deaf barristers doing the job, I just really wanted to sort of see if I could do it. But obviously I had to pretend and say, oh yes, absolutely, and feign a sort of confidence that I didn't really have. But luckily it seems to have worked out.
It has always been more tricky for me to apply for many privileges. For example, since I have to think, are the chambers accessible? If they're not, will they be able to facilitate my experience in a different way? Or now that I'm starting the bar course, I have to make sure that I will have all of those adjustments I need in place. Sometimes the way that the advocacy, testing and exams work might not necessarily be in the way that is accessible to me.
When I did do mini pupillage, I did come across one barrister who said that they thought I would be better suited to being a solicitor and that I would find that easier, which I thought was incredibly naive, because as a deaf person, the ability to work predominantly on your own and have quite limited interaction with other people is a bonus.
The first blind judge that I'm aware of in the UK was, I think he was called Sir John Lafferty, and that was just a few decades ago, and it was very groundbreaking. It was really quite a significant step when he became a judge.
I can only imagine how difficult it must have been for barristers that predate my years of practice who had disabilities, them trying to access support.
In the legal profession, there are many ancient and respected buildings that are given priority over the physical needs of the people alive and using them. My own chambers are located on a first floor in a grade 1 or 2 listed building where they are not allowed by either regulation to put in a lift. So for me to enter my own chambers is almost impossible.
It's almost like a carrot and stick approach, isn't it? You know, the regulation is the stick, and that's all well and good, but we need to change hearts and minds and empower people.
Alongside regulation, you need really good enforcement with investment behind that enforcement. And you need training, and that needs to go way back. So if you're thinking about the legal profession, attracting disabled students to law schools and ensuring that they have a positive, inclusive time.
When I've spoken to the people that have gone through the Access to Work scheme, they equally find it difficult and are frustrated at the fact that there are such significant delays because everything is by post, and that it needs to go through 3 or 4, 5, 6 sets of hands before you get an outcome.
I do think the biggest barrier I have come across in terms of my disability at work has been those, luckily, rare occasions when I've had a judge who hadn't really quite understood the role of the stenographer and why they're there. And something's been lost in the communication between the clerk and the judge. So on one occasion, the judge just simply didn't seem to understand that I was deaf, and that was why I had a stenographer, and so accused me in open court of unlawfully recording the proceedings, and so that was quite awkward. And he sort of continued on a sort of tirade for about 30 minutes without letting me speak. And of course he was very embarrassed when he realised what the situation actually was and apologised to me, again in open court, just sort of salvaged the situation somewhat.
I've had court staff ask me how many fingers am I holding up, or where's your guide dog? I don't have a guide dog, and that for me is a very personal thing, because I don't feel, I've been offered a guide dog and I've been offered a cane, but I'm not at a point where I've made peace with that yet. I haven't reached that point.
It's okay to talk about disability.
Talking about disability is a fundamental part of what I'm trying to do and advocate for. I believe by talking about disability, I make sure that I have the support that I need in place. Otherwise, I don't think I will be able to achieve my full potential.
Sometimes people are a bit nervous of disability or ethnicity or race or LGBTQ, and actually all we're doing is talking about people and other human beings, and in most cases people are really, really good at talking to each other, and it's about having the conversation, maybe creating more safe spaces.
People feel nervous about talking about disability and saying, is where I'm standing okay? Actually, it's absolutely fine to ask that question, and that the person will usually be extremely pleased that you have asked. At the moment at the bar we have a huge problem of non-disclosure. We know that disabled applicants are very reluctant to disclose their disability. Number one question, well, should I disclose this on my application?
I'd like to see an environment where more barristers are willing to talk about their disabilities. Barristers are often afraid of potentially being seen weak if they have a disability. They may be afraid that solicitors won't instruct them because they may think they're unreliable because of a disability. And my experience hasn't been like that at all.
I did have a real fear as to how I would be perceived now as a barrister with a disability. Would it affect my income stream? Would my solicitors feel that the quality of the service I was providing was that going to be compromised? Was I going to face prejudices that I hadn't encountered previously? And I've been very lucky that only some of those have come true. I've been very lucky to be very supported by my clerks. My solicitors have been extremely loyal, and in an ironic twist of fate, I have solicitors who seek me out and instruct me deliberately because I have experience of living with a disability, and they have clients who are seeking barristers who understand the challenges they face.
I will never forget that when I graduated with my LLB, and proudly smiling that was on my Twitter and LinkedIn, I received an extraordinary amount of messages. You motivated us to do X, or can you please help me on how I can best support my disabled child to go to university. Are things that empowered me and empower me now, since I feel that no matter the challenges that I have to tackle day by day, I help others achieve their dreams. So it's this feeling of community and feeling that what I'm doing is impacting others is what keeps me going.
I would suggest that chambers probably should work more closely with education providers, if I can say that. And I have just said it, so I'm saying it.
The most important thing is to be open to new ideas, to be creative, and to be consultative, so to ask disabled people, whether individuals or perhaps in this case disabled people's organisations.
If we can show that the culture has changed from our materials, from our websites, from the information that we provide, when we're able to point to a portal of information and support that is out there, I think that will then encourage disabled students to feel, well, why wouldn't I disclose it?
Being really inclusive about your advertising of job adverts can make a really big difference, because it sends out a much more powerful message than the actual words, "We welcome disabled people."
I don't think there's sufficient support by any means for barristers with disabilities. When I first received my diagnosis, I was stunned at the lack of support that there was. It really was a case of tumbleweed. There has been a steep change, I believe, in the past 2 years or so. We've got some fantastic committees, associations, we've got task forces in place now, but if we compare that to other groups who have sought assistance and representation, I think that disabled people, we've always been at the back of the queue.
I'll fall down, but I'll get up on my wheelchair again. However, this is very challenging when you are 22, when you have your dreams to follow ahead of you. So you don't need other people to constantly disapprove or be cautious of what you do, simply because you were born with a different, with a disability, which in fact has enabled you to think out of the box, be more resilient, and be solution oriented.
And if you don't draw from that pool, you are missing out a whole range of talent, and therefore the bar and the judiciary is weaker for not having those people in it.
Diversity is easy, inclusivity is what's tough.
Ensuring that disability is really front and centre in a lot of those widening participation schemes would be a really good step forward, I think.
The world is changing, and therefore the best way to create public confidence in the lawmakers is for the public to see that the lawmakers are just like them.
And let's just keep it real. Sounds really, really corny, but keep it real.